All right, hey there, Sam back with you here on Tuesday, November 27th. And again, on a Tuesday, we're looking at traditionals. So by request here, I've got a look at the Nasdaq. Now, this is a daily chart, and so we can get a nice framing of the entire bull move here. So I'm at the 2009 lows, and there's a reasonable case that we could make that we've gone swing low to swing high, that we've got a completed impulsive structure. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Is the top in? Well, there's a pretty strong case for that. So, but the reason I wanted to give you the full look at it is that if that's the case, then our next target down, well, you can see here was the point of control, right? From the 2009 lows to the highs that we made here in 18, this 9-year move. Well, if we're thinking about where the next opportunity is to be on the long side, that would be just like any 5-wave structure, whether we were looking at a 1-minute chart or a 1-month chart. Next opportunity is at the 50. Well, the 50, interestingly, is where the point of control is, right here. Coincidence? Maybe not. All right, so if this is coming all the way down, if this is going to complete, if we're done, which is a reasonable possibility here, the next spot, well, on the longer term, right? So let's be clear here. On the longer term is down here at the 50 at the point of control. That's where, so if this is a completed 5 and we're coming in for the next move, got to pay attention to that. Also would be very consistent for the pivot to happen at the prior range of the 3, 4, 1 degree lower. It's not uncommon. So are we going that far? Certainly a possibility. Well, let's kind of pick this thing apart and see if we can make sense of it. So the thinking being that this area here, and we've looked at this a couple of times here in video, that this is an expanded flat. That's the first assumption we have to make here, is that the 3 went in here, there's the A wave, the ABC of the B, and we get an expanded flat. Right, in a very strong market, it's not uncommon. Then we went up here and we finished, and we can finish it rather nicely. And this is very, very, very technical. So if I look here from the length of the 1 down to the 2, here's the, right, we've shown this 100 times, right? Here's your high probability zone for a 3. We go right into it. There's some question as to whether or not this was the 3 or this was the 3. I leaned into this as the 3 because of how technical that is. And then I can finish here with a diagonal. So in that finishing diagonal, I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to finish us. So from this pivot low here that we did in April, right, April of this year, I can get a 1, 2, 3, 4 ending with a diagonal. I've got all of the ingredients for a top here. Now, given the depth of the retracement so far and how far we've moved off of this pivot, a pretty reasonable case to be made there that that's done. Now, so you got to put it in context and say, oh, well, wait a minute, where's the 50? So a long way to go. If that's the pivot and we're going to do just some sort of a very big A, B, C to get down here, well, we got to kind of put the roadmap together to see how that's going to look. So what we've got so far, and I think that's important to do that to give it some perspective, because if you just zero in here and you're just down into the into the minutia here and you don't pay attention to perspective, it's easy to lose track of where you are. Where's the 50? I'm way 4,400. Where are we at right now? What was the low of this pivot? It was 6,400. So it's possible, right? There's a reasonable, so let's reset here. There's a reasonable possibility that the top is in and we've just started a rather large correction. So let me just get all this lined up here. So that's potentially now a major pivot. It's a dominant pivot no matter how we slice it. So you can see here, hard to argue with that ABC. So it looks like I got clean 5 in the A, nice little 3 in the B, and there's some sort of a diagonal thing that finishes here. So given the 3-wave here, I'm hard-pressed to think anything other than W. So WXY, just connecting two ABCs, right? Not complicated. Here's the ABC of the W, ABC of the X. Now, where are we in the Y? Well, if the Y, seems unlikely that the Y could travel all the way down here, that we'd be in some sort of gigantic Y, that symmetry is just all off. So let's see is there a path to get there? Could we go that far? Well, if we look into this, if I have it correctly identified here as this ABC and we've got a W, well, let's clear up the chart here. You'd anticipate that this is going to be technical. All right, and this is actually, let's go to a 2-hour here so I can show you some of this. This is as no surprise here, it's incredibly technical. So if we just pull from our absolute swing high, okay, proposed A wave, right? So here, right, remember, it doesn't matter what the asset, does not matter. This algo is always there, and it always leaves footprints, right? So that's likely it here. So here they clear it with plenty, but likely this is the reaction here. So likely that's the front run on that target. Remember, algo does not give a shit about the Elliott count. It's just swing low here. That's likely the front run. If not, then they got it here. So A, B, tech, look right to the Vegas wave. Don't forget the Vegas wave. It's just one more component here to tell you that you've got a potential pivot. So look here. I mean, it's all just set up there for you. There's pattern, right? Dominant swing. We're at the 50. Vegas wave. You got your prior cluster here. I mean, so look here. I mean, how many components do you need, right? So we've got all of this low volume node here as we come into that. So just pull it over, right? So there you go, and then pull it this way. So what is there anything else there that you might be looking at? What else is there? So you just keep looking left. Well, was that prior support? Maybe the resistance. Keep going. What else is there? Prior resistance over here. So resistance, support. Support, briefly, resistance. Potentially resistance again. Well, I wouldn't ignore it, right? And it's easy to spot, right? Just a low volume node at the 50. Not hard to find. Okay, so A, B looks like that is done. So if we're thinking that's done, or we're just going to pull from the pivot here, so clear this up here. So, well, so this good example of the algo in full flight. Okay, so here's the reaction at the 50. Not enough legs. They take it back up. Now, they can't quite get to the 618, but we get right into that drill zone. That's right where you're looking for the turn. And if I recall here, let me pull this off. This was a 50, so there were at least 4 of them in there. So here's 50 to the tick. Well, algo, both sides. They play both sides, right? I'm not suggesting it's the same people. We don't know who's behind it. We can just spot the algo when it's in play. So is that the front run on that target? Hard to say. Hard to say, right? Again, you're kind of looking left. Is this enough? Was this enough? Right? Was it this that they were keyed off of here? Could be. Could be. You just ran into some prior support, low volume node. Could be. Right, hard to say, but so for whatever reason here, that could be a front run. All we can do is say, well, this was to the tick. Front run, maybe, but look at the reaction. So the conundrum about where we are now is we've got a clean 5 to finish here. So the potential is here that the Y is done, that this isn't done. Right? That potential is here because I've got a motive wave come. Yes, I've got an impulse that comes down here that's very technical. So let me open it up here so you can see this. So this is a completed 5. So if I look here and I take this here, so the length of my 1 projected from my 2, right? Get it right on there. Okay, so here's my 3, right? 1618 to the tick. Right? It's just not rocket science. So we know that's the most probable zone for the third. Where does it go? Right to the tick, right? Ticks on the 1618. So now we're looking at that going, okay, well, if that was good, so let's pull this over to the side. Okay, so that was perfect. Now here's the 4. Well, it doesn't overlap the 1. So if I had wicked that off, right? So it doesn't overlap the 1. So we're looking here now. So if this is my 2, all right, and this is my 3. Well, here we are, right? Right back to the so you look at this and you think, is it this pivot? All right, let's do it this way. So always look left. What was there? What do we run into? Is it that? Right? Prior support, resistance. Look how many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times they're probing that. Look what happens to the volume. Right? Low volume. Relatively low volume. Right? So you carry the whole thing over. Low volume. Okay, so gets rejected here. Tickles the edge of the Vegas wave. Whew, straight down. Second target. Right? It's just they keep every day, every asset, every time frame, 1 minute, 1 month, 1 hour, 4 hour. It doesn't matter whether it's futures, forex, crypto. Doesn't matter. I defy you to put up a chart where you can't find it. You can't find this. It's always there. Right? So, okay, so is this the 2? So if this is done, so you could make the case that WXY, well, that'd be a skinny Y or a short Y relative to the X. Maybe. Here's the alternate. right? If we've got a much more bearish scenario on our hands, right, and this is all going down, then this completed 5, just the one wave. Right, so or the A wave, right? So we got to look at it this way. So if this is the X, we're trying to complete an A. Pardon me, let me slow down. So if we've gone ABC, if we're going to have a WXY, we're trying to complete another ABC. So this is either the one wave. So think about where we're trying to get, right? Which is where was it? Way down here. Okay, so if this is WX, right, and that remains to be seen. If this is WX, which right now I lean into that, all right, until proven otherwise. If this is the ABC of the W, this is the ABC of the X, well, then we've got to put together another ABC. So, right, so this could be the A, this could be the B, and the C would be down here. Well, that's not going to get us far enough. So then you think, well, what's the other alternate? Well, this could be just the one wave of the A wave of the larger degree. So that could, well, let me do it this way. So this could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A wave, possible. This has got to go way down here. And then you got to look at it and you think, well, does that scale fit? If this were, let me show it to you this way. If this is the W and this is the X and the Y is going to be way the hell down there, well, is that outside of the range of what a normal, so if this is the W, this is the X, how far would that actually take us for the Y? Well, here's the 2618. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, if I needed it to go 4618 or something, would that be an extreme for a Y? Absolutely. Has it happened before? Sure, right? Nothing says that it couldn't happen. So you got to lean into this a little bit more, saying, well, given the symmetry that we'd be looking for here, let me get this off of here. Let me go zoom in here. Given this, all right, given that, what's the alternate? Could this just be a big ABC of a, so we might have a 3, 3, 5, so we're just putting in a zigzag, certainly possible. So that's the other alternate. We've got just an A, B, C, and this all, so if it's going to go WXY, kind of the problem of doing this on the fly here. So the benefit is you go through the thinking process with me. Others will say, like, shit, man, work this shit out before you start. Well, I get enough people that tell me they like the thought process, so I stick with it. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying, well, if this isn't the WXY, and we got to rethink this, and I'm doing it on the fly here. So if this is, so let's say, for example, the possibility, which is very real, is that we've just done, we're just going to do a zigzag. So we're going to go, well, pardon me. So we'd be, potentially we could do a 3, 3, 5. So that if we're doing a zigzag, we've got to get 5 here. It doesn't look as good. Well, you couldn't. You could have a diagonal. So you got to check it and say, well, let's see, A to B. So we know this couldn't be the 3. So we couldn't have 1, 2, 3, 4 unless we can check. It looks to me like, well, it's going to be close. All right, so if we take the length, if this were the 3 and this is the 4, are we long? Oh, fuck, that's unbelievable. Look at that, right to the tick. So 100%. Creates the possibility that we could have it doesn't look right. So here's what I was trying to work through. So if I'm wrong about it, because I'm trying to think, what's a roadmap that can get me way the hell down here if that top is in? So first thought is, well, maybe you're crazy to think that the top is in. Could be, right? But I've got a nice clean 3-wave structure here. What else could it be? Well, because that's a 3, so, you know, if we're going to get a zigzag, we need a 3, 3, 5, or pardon me, a 5, 3, 5. So I just don't love it as a diagonal. So let's look here. So this feels like a fairly good 5 here. So let me take that off. So could this be? Let's look at it. So if this is the one here, all right, we know this was technical. So, man. Boy, I don't love it as a zigzag. So the possibility would be that we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of a diagonal. Sorry, guys. Forget to turn that off every now and then. Okay, so possibly, but that symmetry just doesn't look great. It looks better to me as 3, 3, 5. So until proven otherwise, even though that's a possibility here, I don't like. So look at it here. So if I just pull it aside, right, that's the shape that you're suggesting if you were trying to get a leading diagonal out of that. Not that it's not possible, it just seems less likely here because this ABC looks so clear. So again, I come back to, well, why assume anything other than, what's the most obvious thing staring me in the face? Until proven otherwise, that looks like WX. So if that's a clean 5, well, we got two possibilities here, right? One is that the WXY is complete, and that's in. Well, so again, we just looked at that. So if we think about that in terms of distance, if that's skinny, little skinny, so the alternate is that we're just going ABC. Right, so that all we did here, this is the A wave, B wave going in, C wave going down here. It still doesn't get us. It doesn't get us down to those levels down here. But so there could be something more complex. It's just there's no way to know for sure other than, so where's the next trade, right? That's what most people, when they're watching these videos, is there a trade? Where's the next trade? Well, the next trade is right here. So if you're a short-term trader, you've certainly got this. All right, well, note what happened here. Let's come here. All right, so if we come into this zone right here, right? So let's wick it off. Let's see Bill put a trade together. So there's a significant pivot right there, the proposed A wave. So if we zoom in on this, so we've got 5 that's complete here. Now this, so here, how do we know if we're wrong? Well, if this turns into a motive wave, this is going to look less likely. So right now the assumption is that that's an A wave. So we're trying to get this to complete. A, B, C of some sort, and then down here, right? We don't know where that completes. 100% would be a likely target. So this is the trade we're trying to set up, an A, B, C. So A, potentially done. Now, how do we know if we've got a B? Well, if this turns into a motive wave, which is certainly possible considering what we're looking at here. So right now, so let's put this off to the side. Right now, we can see this. So we get a little 1, 2, right? We're going up for the 3 before we head down. Certainly possible. Now, how do we know? Well, I'm on a 2-hour. Let's go to a 1 hour here. If this turns into a motive wave, well, we've already overlapped this potentially. So if we end up with this, we get 1, 2, 3 of some sort, and again, we don't know where that 3 is, so it's maybe premature to say that we've overlapped there because we don't know that that's the 3 and this is the 4. So if we get something like this, now we know we don't have a B wave. All right, so as this sits here showing some strength, 1, 2 looks like a deep 2, so likely challenging the 7, 8, 6 there as they went to break those lows. Let's tighten that up. So is it 1, 2 or is it A, B? Well, you're not going to know until you see what happens here. Right? Do we get a 4 and do we get a 5? Then you still have the remote possibility here that you're just doing the A of an ABC, but given the scale here of what we've seen here, that would seem less likely. So that would be the assumption that you had this happening. If that was going to turn into a larger degree B, you'd be thinking this. Well, could this be A, B, C? I suppose so. It's possible here that this could just turn into an A, a B, and a C. So would that make sense? Well, if this is the A, well, let's put it together. So this would be, here would be, if this is A, B, we'd be in that zone. We know it can go as high as the 7, 8, 6. So that's still in the realm of possibility. You'd prefer to see it pivot here before breaking the 6, 5 because you know there's going to be an algo there that will start selling here. Right? If they can't get the turn here, if that's a 5. All right, so you got a couple of possibilities here. So if that completes as a 5, so let's look at this. So if this is done over here, and this completes as a 5 here, that reduces the possibility that this is the B. If we get 5 here, we don't know yet, but if we do get 5 here, well then you're stuck wondering, going, well, is that 1, 2? So there would be a trade here. So if we, again, now I'm hypothetical here, if we got this here and then we came down into this zone, there would be you definitely would have a buy side trade there, and you know you're going to have algos along for the ride if you hold the 65. So this is very tradable here on the long side. So I don't like this just yet as a short until we see what kind of resolution we get here. So if we come up here, let's take that off, and we get this with just an ABC. So it's tradable, right? So it's definitely, so if you got this as an ABC and we end up with this, so if this is just an AB and we're going to get a C here and you're looking to turn down, well, here's the trade that would be there. So again, it's definitely there. So that's an option for you here because this 5 is, we know this 5 is done. As to whether this turns into a 3 or a 5, well, so you're rolling the dice here that this is not done. So that this 5 is just the A wave. If you get a 3 here, you're trading at the 50. You've got a lot of confluence here. You've got a lot of prior support here that's potentially kicking in here. We've got here this little volume node over here that might come into play. So you got to think about where you're going to place your stop. But if you're a seller here, your stop's on the other side of the 65. So you have potentially a decent short sitting there. So if you're a seller here, stop on the other side of the 65. Target is down here. What do you get there? It's 4.84 to 1. Almost 5 to 1. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. All right, setting up rather nicely here. So ideally, all right, so here's the problem with an ABC or a 1, 2, 3. You're looking for 5 in that C in the same way you're looking for 5 in an impulse of the third wave. So there's no way to know just yet. So you got to take a calculated risk here. All right, are you willing to risk this much for the potential to make that much? All right, if you don't get it at the 50, then you got to rethink it at the 618 because the trade is still there, other than the fact that the risk reward profile has increased. So if you we use that pivot. So if you were still in or you took the stop, well, now you're sitting here with a 14.5 to 1 trade setting up for a sell at the golden zone. So you would have that, and then additionally you could pitchfork this. Maybe we'd get something like this where we'd get median line there in there. Let's get, oh, you get what I'm after here. So we'll get to original. So you might have this teed up here. Now, again, we don't know where this is. We don't know what that looks like, where that median line is going to come into play until we have this pivot. So you have a possible corner pocket here, possible golden corner pocket, that all just setting up for the ABC that sets up into that sell. And you'd still be back to the idea that all you were doing was this was the A, then we went A, B, C into the B, and then you were going down for the C, right? And then we're looking for 5 to complete that. Could be the algo target, could be second target. No way to know until it starts to move. How does it move? So if we put that all back together, so let's go back to, let's do a 4 hour. Right? If this is WXY, then we have made, so then there's no way, right? So if we think about where that is in the context of the entire move, knowing that a 50% is way the hell down here, well, then it's unlikely that this is our top. Right? I mean, it's just, there's no other way to resolve it here. We can't get a WX, well, can't's the wrong word. It would be very low probability that we would have this all heading down here based off of what we see so far. So either this is not the top, and this is, maybe it's in, maybe this is just a 1, 2, or there's some other count in play that the market hasn't given us enough here to be able to work with. Right now, there's no reason to assume anything other than I have a significant top here because I can complete it from 2009 with all of the necessary subdivision. In fact, there's more subdivision. It's a bit of a chore to work through that 3 and get all of that subdivision. That's not a bad exercise to do. See if you can do it. So looking down here, where are we? Where are we? Well, you don't necessarily have to have it completely figured out to make some money in here, take some trades. You don't have to know exactly where we are before we get there. We can just work through what we just did here, and there are trade opportunities setting up within this. We may not know. Gosh, shit, it could be 2 years before we know what we actually end up with here. This was 8, 9 years. Right, so it's not unreasonable to think could take some time before we figure out what. Now, then of course there's the other thought. Shit, we could get there next week. You don't know, but that's a very long fall. We're going to go to 2,000 NQ points. How does it get there? Right? Does not. It looks like we're making a start on it, but too soon to say the long-term bull market in an NQ is over. Certainly not prepared to make that statement, but that doesn't mean we can't get plenty of trades going on in here. All right, so there you go, guys. That's 25 minutes. Didn't mean to go that long. Well, that'll give you plenty to chew on here. Hopefully you get something out of that as you work through that thought process, because if you're trying to apply this, you're going to go through that exact same process. Where's the low? What do we have happening here? Is it 3 or is it 5? Are we done here? Is this the W? Is this the X? Are we done, or is this just the A wave, right? Those are all the issues you got to deal with, and you're not going to know until you get more information. The market has to reveal itself. Right now, this is what we have to work with. It's technical. We know it's technical. You've got trades setting up. All right, guys, I'll wrap it there.